I'm so excited to get to talk to three of my favorite colleagues and talk about one of our favorite subjects of residential typology. So Reilly, Hogan, Trent, Tesch, I'm Rebecca. We're here in New York and we're joined with Pamela in our London office and our great collaborator.
Hi, it's so nice to be able to join you guys.
Residential work is so precious to me because it's all about people living, and it's about that family interaction, the potential of life that happens. When you start to lay out plans, you can visualize those celebrations or those view corridors and other things that happen in that residential typology, which I think is, to me, it's the most fun part about it.
I just want to share an anecdote. Like when I was first working on residential, I was on a project with Rebecca. Actually, we were doing 500 West 21st Street, our project on the High Line. And when we were really starting to delve into the whole unit process with the client and the brokers, I remember the client always saying, every unit has to be great.
Every unit has to be perfect.
And he just emphasized this over and over, and we weren't done until we had achieved that. And I feel like that just has stuck with me over the years, and it's something that I kind of bring as like a mentality to all of our projects.
Yeah, even on that one, what was so fascinating is, it was for Sherwood Equities and Jeffrey Katz. He actually didn't listen to the advice of the broker so much. And his point was like, this just has to work. It doesn't matter about calibrating the exact unit and area, which does drive a lot of our work. And he did drive through the floor plates that each one has to be perfect. And what was fun about that one, which we have in every one of our projects, there's some story we bring to it. And who is going to buy there, who's going to rent there, who's going to live there. And that story for Jeffrey was, how do you bring the Upper East Side downtown? And so we spent a lot of time on those layouts, keeping some of the formal aspects of an Upper East Side apartment, but also making it contemporary. So I know the first pass I did with him, he's like, oh, your foyers are still too big. We need to get them smaller, but we can't lose them. They still have to be gracious like the Upper East Side. And all those principles of, no dead-end rooms. Every room has to have multiple ways in and out. In the bedroom, you don't want doors because it just gives a psychology of like, you need to escape, but what you really want to do in the bedroom is stay there. So even just the detail of the sequence from how you enter your bedroom and your whole suite. So there was a lot of scrutiny with that, and then I think that was our first project at KPF that fully sold off of floor plans, and this was 15 years ago. Now that's the standard of everything. So Pamela, what about you? What were some of your interesting points of the rigorous of planning?
We at KPF have this opportunity to do projects in different countries, some of them really far away from here, with projects in Cape Town, projects in New Delhi, in China. All these cultures are so different, and you start understanding that what is good for one is not necessarily the way they want it, because everybody lives differently. And that process of learning, because you bring in your ideologies, the things that you learn in London is very good practice, and then when you start confronting other cultures, you start seeing that the way of living has complete different requirements sometimes, and you need to find a way to do good architecture, but at the same time adapting and giving what is for their locality the must.
That made me think about how we work in New York City. So even though New York City has its identity, each neighborhood is so different. And I know you've worked in some of the hippest neighborhoods in New York City.
Yeah, no, I my first residential project was 1 Jackson Square in Greenwich Village, and it was sort of at the intersection of Chelsea, Meatpacking. Half of it was in the historic district in Greenwich Village, and that was a really interesting challenge because the shape of the site was so unique and distinct. Trying to get a residential building built in a historic district is quite challenging, and so it was a fascinating project to work with the various community groups and to try to really make a piece of architecture that was both connected to the site but also had something more to add to Jackson Square. And so it was something that we took incredibly serious at the time and wanted to make sure that it felt really good on the site.
I live in that neighborhood, and I see that building all the time, and I feel like it really belongs to the neighborhood, even though it's expressed in glass and metal. Somehow it really beautifully fits in context to this day.
The planning of that was so not necessarily difficult, but because it was on top of the subway, we had a lot of technical challenges, but also it was such a narrow site. It was a single loaded corridor as opposed to a double loaded corridor, which made it a real challenge for us to figure out.
So with the facade, as architects, we want to dream, push the envelope, pun intended on that one, but really have as progressive of a design as, the culture can accept and the client will. But with residential, we tend to be a little bit more tempered, and something with 1 Jackson Square kind of hit that. You really took something more progressive, not what you would expect for a traditional residential context, but it ages well. It still fits in, and it reflects back to, the facet of the neighborhood.
The argument that we made was that if you look closely at all of the blocks that were intersected by a diagonal street, they all created unique pieces of architecture. And so we kind of made the argument that because of the shape of the site and because it was across from a park, it needed to have almost a civic presence. Because of the zoning, the lot line, there was a tall part and a low part, and the kind of the softening of that architecture really joined those two pieces together. So that was how we made that building fit on the site.
In a little bit of a contrast to the approach of that building, we kind of in our 64 University project really embraced like the red brick character of the village, and kind of took that brick and crafted it to another level, and really simple, a pretty simple facade in some ways, but with a lot of depth and the utilization of the arch, which I think has kind of a domestic feel to it. Like it gives the spaces kind of a residential quality.
Well, and the setbacks are so nice because they connect to the scale of the other buildings in a very compelling way. And I also think the arches in that project relate to the scale of the human, which is really great to see.
And the scale of the room.
Yeah,
right? I mean, it was so integrated to your planning on that one.
Entirely, it was like, what are the right series of rooms across the facade, and that is going to make the fenestration.
Yeah, I mean, that was one 500 West 21st Street where you did the planning for a while before you even came to the articulation of what does the outside look like.
Yeah, and then we really anchored the exterior rhythm and the structure to that inside out kind of thinking by kind of making the columns the same as the piers, the same as of the whole building's expression. It was like locked in.
Yeah.
You have a project in Florida where your massing came about by the units and the view, and so not just the facade that followed the unit planning, but it was actually the massing that came as a result of the units themselves.
I like to think of it as kind of a unit first approach in our thinking about how we make great residential architecture. And in that project, it's a large site. It's on Rybovich Marina in West Palm Beach. There was an opportunity for 4 residential towers, and our commitment to the client was that we will make sure that all of the units have direct waterfront views. There would be no compromised unit, no even second-rate unit in this entire development. And so that really informed the shapes of the buildings in a way that all the units could do that, and the orientation of the units and the buildings themselves and they're on this site, with 3 along the waterfront facing out, and then 1 out on the pier building, which actually has panoramic views of the water in 3 directions.
It's interesting that residential typology often creates distinct forms out of that idea that you're talking about unit inside out design. Unit planning is the most important thing, and then really the relationship to the city and how it kind of opens up to various view cores, like in your case, the water, or it's the grandeur of the skyline, and how each loggia or terrace has that direct connection to various parts of the city.
And I think it results in some creative and unexpected buildings.
Yeah.
What you might have think of as the building at first, if you think inside out and you work with the units and what it really wants to be, it's this completely different thing.
Yeah, that's right. I was just going to say to Pamela, the clearings project that we worked on years ago, it's kind of the inverse of that, right? It's like we had to shape the building because in London, the rules about not blocking views from other apartments.
Yeah, the clearance is so interesting because it was one of the first projects where we started to use the environmental performance testing really deeply in the beginning of the project, trying to, with a big block, which was a warehouse before, start adding permeability, but in such a strategic way that you can allow light to go to your neighbors as well as producing the best units possible. So you have triple aspects or dual aspect as a must, and then how to get all this light into the super prime development, but at the same time setting back your buildings so you can mitigate any impact of the light of the neighborhood, because it's all Georgian and protected conservation area, and the opportunity to go up and get really unchangeable views, but in such a way that you will never create any pinch point that will affect the lighting of the community, of anyone around. It's such a piece of jewelry work done that allow us, in that case, to go really high in a zone that we went 8 stories where everything around was about 6, because we did it in a way that nobody can see how much the building is growing, is creating value without impacting the neighborhood. And that was really well received by the neighbors. And each of these terraces needed to be strategically located to avoid overlooking. So you have big apartments, and all the terrace is your terrace. There is no sharing terraces and apartments. So how do you do that? In about 22 terraces we got perimeter running across the buildings. When it gets built, it's going to be very beautiful.
I think since COVID, we've seen terraces come up on other typologies, but really that's one of the granular things that distinguish a residential product from another one. And you know, how our urban context is built with all those layers, and how cities have changed so much. You know, there wasn't as much living in the city. Original, like at least in New York City, I mean, every culture is different, and I think Paris was the first to have this multiple dwelling concept, at least in our modern, you know, history. But in New York, they were like tenement housings. It wasn't like a place like, let's live here, but the city has transformed to make, you know, not just New York, but you know, throughout the U.S. for sure, that cities are a place people want to live. And it's because of, you know, the texture of residential projects.
I think the thing that residential buildings offer the city is that granular scale, that texture, because it's often, you know, windows that are shaped in some way that kind of have a impression on the inside as well as the outside, and it's just they are really the backbone of the city. You know, they create this sort of urban fabric that, you know, when done well, really feels like a joyous occasion. Like it feels like a really wonderful moment as you're passing by on the street. And we not only design it for the family, but we really think about the passerby, and making sure that we bring that human scale to these projects is so important. Reilly, for Fulton Bond, we worked really hard on creating that urban scale by kind of the master plan of those blocks. And but it was driven by the unit layout and the plans, which I think are some of the most well thought through plans that I've ever seen.
We really obsessed over the units on that fairly simple tower of 3 units, but we spent a lot of time crafting that unit itself in isolation. How could we make this the best, you know, we could be for this site? And that also included the idea of the like outdoor loggia, which we're doing on a lot of our projects.
Loggias with views to the
like
city.
Big
downtown.
loggias that like are extensions of the living room and basically become another living space outside. In the end, we kind of took those units and put them together, and that created the shape of the floor plate. Like it was derived out of the units and the requirement of the core.
I think the articulation, you know, that gets developed reflects the values of the city, right? Like, I think you can tell a city and what they value by how well they develop their residential architecture.
Right,
and I think, you know, the urban fabric is what is most successful is when you get that value to come across in your residential work.
Sometimes I think we can, very simple forms in residential actually have a lot of power and can be really successful just with working with the character of that facade. And I think our project in Fulton Market is a great example called Fulton Bond.
Probably one of the most strong projects recently where all these things have come together in the waterfront of Cape Town. Granger Bay has a very, very unique site where, by being just facing the waterfront, the ocean, but then behind you got the harbor, and then the whole backdrop of the Table Mountain makes a site that has no bad facade. All the views are views that everybody wants, and they have very high value. The challenge of where to place the terraces, how to orientate it, then how you connect with the culture by taking the character of a working harbor. It kind of puts all together all the elements that you need to do when you're doing residential.
You know, Paul Katz, our former president, we would talk about, he would say, you know, the hotel modules change so much because of the television. And he said, and then the residential unit changes so much because of accessibility. So your bathrooms are huge, your kitchens are huge, and the bedrooms and, you know, other rooms get smaller compared to how, you know, it was traditionally. And it's the kitchen that is, you know, a signifier of the culture and how it's used. And I know you were working on a project where it was so important that we had 2 kitchens because of the servery and, you know, the butler's kitchen.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing about planning that is so interesting, that how it evolves over time. The first multi-family dwellings in New York City, their kitchens were always suppressed to the back of the apartment. They were considered not great parts of the apartment, and today they're considered the kind of the jewel of the apartment. And I think it's an interesting evolution of how planning changes throughout time. And I've always thought, will the kitchens ever recede as we go forward? Will they ever change and evolve into something else? And I don't know, Pamela, you were involved in a project that had a unique kitchen design.
The Lucan is a project that is within a very particular area of Chelsea, where we were maximizing the unit sizes as much as possible. But the client had a very unique idea of this being a second or even third apartment of the buyer. So the demographic and the profile was expected people who will have a very beautiful kitchen, but not big. So it has to be open kitchen and it has to be very social, but bathrooms needed to be big and super, super comfortable. Bedrooms, the size required for the kids coming with a friend, enjoying holidays, but people who probably will not be that long. And then the kitchen became all one integrated space. It's a very modern concept where everything is happening in a kind of one social area where probably most people will be ordering takeaway.
We have a project going up now. There was a lot of excitement of the demolition of an existing building there.
The Mandarin Miami. We've been working on that for several years now, and very soon they're going to start construction. And the narrative of that project is all about nature and view and water and Miami and the historic kind of quality of making something extraordinary in a place that is so unique, this island. And we talked about that building as sort of an island on the island. It's 2 separate buildings, a hotel residence, Mandarin, and then a very large, very crafted amenity deck that has several pools and a lot of indoor-outdoor space, and then the main tower, which is has panoramic views of the water and downtown Miami, and it's just been such an incredible effort for our team here at KPF.
So all of our projects bring out value somehow, right? Like for the developer, we need to be adding value in whatever we do. And that one, it was kind of like everywhere. Like we've made decisions sometimes that might be more expensive, but because it added so much more value. And from how the elevator sequence worked, so there was some inefficiency of construction structure, but what you got was direct entry for every unit.
You see that a lot in our Miami studies. A lot of this valuing of that very private luxury experience of coming just you and your elevator and opening directly into your unit. Sometimes it can be a little bit more efficient than you think, because it actually, you allow to sell the elevator vestibule to the tenant. So you have a bigger core, but it kind of, you eat into it with the area that you're actually selling.
Reilly, which one of your designs would you want to live in?
It's a really hard question to ask. I think the units in Fulton Bond are going to be really spectacular. The 3-bedroom typical unit. Just thought all of the spaces, flowed nicely, and the windows with the careful fenestration of that. That's definitely
and the amenity deck.
That's a top 3 for me. Yeah.
I would probably say the same thing. The penthouse unit is fantastic and has a large terrace and amazing views to the West Loop and downtown core.
So Pamela, what's your favorite KPF residential building you'd want to live in?
The one I'm doing now.
Tell us about it.
Maybe I can't talk much about the one I'm doing now. It's very confidential, but it's very, very interesting because it has a requirement of preservation of historic fabric that is almost 65% of the permitted area to develop. So that makes it such a challenge, but it's so interesting because you have character and you can play with the character. It's such an opportunity. I'm enjoying a lot that project at the moment.
What about you? What's your, where would you live?
I know the exact line, the A line in 500 West 21st Street. It has, because it has ins and outs, it has 3-side exposure. It has a layout that you could use in so many different ways because of the adjacency of one could be a library, one bedroom could open up and be the family room, or you could it's a 3-bedroom, and so you could use it in different ways, and they're all the bedrooms are on a different facing wall, but they have a shared vestibule. So when you're circulating in it, you have your sort of, residential wing, but when you're in it, you're in your private area. And it has something that we can't do anymore, a wood-burning fireplace. It's right on the High Line.
Right.
It's a great neighborhood.
Yeah.
But my favorite is probably in Houston. And so what we did there for the Birdsall, the idea was to bring people who only live in private residences. So it's their first time in a multiple dwelling kind of experience. And so it is a very luxurious product. The layouts were a little different than typical urban layouts. So there's a very large primary suite, and that was even bigger than the whole living suite where you have the living, dining, and kitchen. But a couple small living spaces. So then you'd also have your office, but it opened up, and you have a family area off the kitchen, and so you have the eat-in kitchen as well. But it's an open layout. So I think it translated from a private residence so much that I think it's like you having your own villa in the sky.
It's nice in these apartments to find little nooks and crannies, to use a phrase, that allow you to kind of be together but also have your own space. I think that's something that's really remarkable about some of our projects.
Thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedules and getting together. It's great to collaborate, and now it's really fun to just share stories. And I look forward to many more collaborations.
I hope so.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you so much.